So when our children gather and ask how we came to be, let's take them on down to Charleston and point to the sea.
First of all, I want to say Raina is doing an excellent job. I don't know how to thank her for all the work she's done today, and I hope that everybody is enjoying this, and I definitely am. We have two panelists today. First person we're going to hear from is Dr. Khadija Ali-Coleman. She is a homeschooling mother, 12 years, and a co-founder of the Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars. Born in Washington, D.C., she is a co-editor of the forthcoming book, Homeschooling Black Children in the United States, an examination of homeschooling in practice, theory, and popular culture. Her research includes study of African-American homeschooled students who are dual enrolled in community college, creative placemaking as a tool for community building, and high impact learning practices. I'm gonna stop there. I have quite a bit here. And then our second panelist is of course, Queen Thais. She has over 30 years as an educator, 20 plus years as a mother of 7 with 80,000 hours of homeschooling. She is the founder and CEO of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Institute and loves to stay connected to working with children, which is her first love and passion. Queen Thais, also known as the Queen of Black Homeschooling, assists Black parents in using the power of homeschooling to guide their children to a life of their dreams where they are academically excellent, confident, enthusiastic, socially conscious, and driven in their life's passion, carrying them on a road of abundance, vibrant health, Black ownership, financial wealth, and an unshakable self-identity that is rooted in the greatness and legacy of their culture. All right, without further ado, we're going to play a short video from that was made by Khadija Ali-Coleman, and then from there we will hear Sister Queen Thais. All right.
And I would like to make a note that I see Sister Khadija is in the room as well.
All right.
My name is Khadija Ali-Coleman. That's me. I am 46 years old, and I have about 10 things I'm usually doing at once. I write plays and songs and get paid sometimes to share them with audiences. I teach community college, even though I'm taking a hiatus this semester, and that's because I got a new full-time job, and I homeschool this person, my daughter, Kari Isabel Soleil. This story is about her and me, and some examples of the positive impact of homeschooling Black children. Why this story? Why me? Well, I am a credible source, I think. I earned my doctorate earlier this year during the blossoming of COVID-19. I literally defended my dissertation on Friday the 13th of March, which was when many schools and businesses closed to quarantine. I had to defend my dissertation through Google Hangout. My dissertation study is titled Dual-Enrolled African-American Homeschool Students, Perceptions of Preparedness for Community College. My research entailed interviewing 8 dual-enrolled African-American children who are between the ages of 14 and 17 years old and homeschooled for high school. They shared with me the ways that homeschooling helped prepare them for college, but I also learned that in many ways, homeschooling had a positive impact on them overall as human beings. So let me backtrack a bit and share with you how I got started homeschooling. When my daughter was born, I had lofty dreams that I'm sure a lot of you parents have of wanting the best for your child, which always means better than what you, the parent, had. Educationally, I hadn't had it so bad during the early part of my life, but my high school years really lacked, and I refer to them as the year I stopped loving learning. My mother moved us around a lot, but early on, the public and private schools she enrolled me in were pretty good. I went to the rigorous Pan-African Institute Nation House Watoto Shule in Washington, D.C. in the early 80s, and later I was in a great elementary school, Woodland Elementary, in Silver Spring, Maryland. A fun fact is that I was in 5th grade with Dave Chappelle. But when my family moved to another county in Maryland, my love of school waned. In fact, I started to hate school. The new schools I attended were dull, restrictive, and lacked the cultural richness I was used to when I lived among people from various countries in the Caribbean, Africa, and South America. I skipped school regularly, although still making good grades, and struggled at home with my mother's abusive new husband. I had vowed that I was never raising a child in this place. However, after college and earning a master's degree in 2000, I was still living in this place by 2003 when my daughter was born. She was in daycare for her first 3 years because I had to work. I had a job in DC where I would literally have her at work with me most of the day because of a lenient boss. This was the start of me having her with me and having her part of whatever I was doing professionally. I got a job in 2006 at Morgan State University as Assistant Director of Residence Life in Baltimore and moved out there with her for 2 years. During those 2 years, she was in a pre-K program that was Montessori-like, where she was one of 3 Black children in a class of about 16 kids. While the 2 teachers who ran the class were not overtly racist or demeaning, the class lacked a cultural richness that I find important for children to have. The teachers also reported to me issues they had with Kari, getting up when she felt like it, like if she had to use the bathroom or go to the writing station, etc. I had taught her to have self-agency very young, and this was not translating well in a school environment. In our house, since she could walk, I had little tables with paper and pencils or crayons for her to access throughout the day, to draw or practice her writing. But in school, the regimented class schedule did not allow her to engage in this behavior. It was at this moment I started to become acutely aware of the way that schools really mute any type of agency children have over their bodies or their time. After 2 years, I moved back with Kari to the county I grew up with after leaving my job in Baltimore. When we returned, the public school system told us that our daughter was not old enough to start kindergarten, so I homeschooled her for about a year until I enrolled her in a private school for part of kindergarten and 1st grade before she went to public school for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. It was in 4th grade when the decision to homeschool for good was cinched. So I began homeschooling Kari after 4th grade. And what spurred it was an incident in particular where her 4th grade teacher reached out to me requesting a parent conference. And I'm thinking that, what did Kari do? I knew that, previously teachers had issues with her just really being self-aware. I need to go to the bathroom, I'm going to go to the bathroom. So these things, but not asking permission, things like that. I thought it was maybe along those lines. Well, the teacher informed me that Kari actually was finishing her work before everyone else. And when she would finish, she would begin writing stories. And I knew at this point that she was a very engaged writer. As soon as she pretty much learned how to read, she began writing. And so she had begun reading around 4. And so she had been writing just as long. And so this was 4th grade. So she was, 8 or 9? And so the teacher asked me, would I ask her to stop writing because it was distracting the other students who weren't finished their work and they wanted to write stories too. And so at that moment, I was convinced that this was a very toxic environment for my daughter, who was a writer, and to be in a learning environment and have a teacher look at that as not being something that was impressive, but in fact, feeling entitled to call that child's parent and plead this case of talking to her so that she will stop writing was the most asinine conversation I've ever had with another educational professional. This woman didn't know that I had been an educator myself for, at this point, over 2 decades. But it was the most ridiculous and actually really dangerous sentiment I felt. And so I knew this would be her last year. We're not going through this again. So for 5th and 6th grade, I homeschooled my daughter. We deschooled slowly because I found that there were certain structures she had in public school that could not be disrupted so easily at first. We finally segued into using some things that are commonly used in college, but allow for a more self-directed experience by the learner. Things like a syllabus, end-of-the-week deadlines instead of daily deadlines, and competency demonstrations through oral presentations, visual displays, and capstone projects instead of tests and quizzes. So yeah, in 5th grade, my child was using a syllabus and really creating a schedule for herself. Where writing for pleasure and at will had been restricted throughout her school day previously, she really had the freedom to write when the spirit moved her. She was making doll houses out of boxes that she found laying around. She was refashioning clothing to craft into designs for her dollhouse. We signed her up for classes at different co-ops in our area. We were really getting our groove on as a homeschooling family. Near the end of 6th grade, she had really become a fan of YouTube. We used it for math when we used Khan Academy, and she watched a lot of her crafting shows on there. She decided that she wanted to be a YouTuber. When I had to outline what are some of the skills a YouTuber needs to be successful, one of the things she identified was a stage presence, the ability to memorize and then speak well. And so I began coaching her in these areas and told her she should consider auditioning locally to get feedback from casting directors and folks in that field to kind of build her confidence.
Wishing Spell, and I chose that book because it's one of my favorite books. My cake was a forest, and it was actually one of the forests in my book called the Dwarf Forest, and that was one of my favorite parts of the book was when they fell into the Dwarf Forest, when they got sucked into the land of stories. I'm 11. I don't bake very often. Very recently, I made rum cake to sell at a market, and yeah.
She auditioned at a magnet school in our county to get the feedback and test her confidence during an audition process. This was at the end of what would be considered her 6th grade year. She wound up getting into the school and decided to attend for 7th grade. I was a bit sad. Our homeschooling was over, but I was happy for her. She did 2 years of middle school for 7th and 8th grade and asked me to homeschool her for high school. Her middle school experience had been bittersweet. She met amazing friends that she still has 5 years later, but the restrictive school environment was a bit much for her. In homeschooling, she decided for middle school she was going to go to this school. She went there for 2 years, and then she opted after 8th grade. She said, "Mommy, I would like to be homeschooled again." And so that is what led her back to the fold to be homeschooled. And these are some things that she had to say about the experience.
This might be intense, but it was kind of like a dictatorship. And it was just very like kind of, since I'm an adult, I can treat you in any way that I feel is right because I'm an adult and you're a child. And that wasn't like right for me. So yeah, after middle school, I didn't really want to attend public school anymore. After that.
I didn't know. So, we never talked about that because so for middle school, you were in a performing arts school. And just for the record, so the audience will know, the performance arts school was very different than the environment that is general in our county where people have to wear uniforms. So in your middle school, you didn't have to wear a uniform. And it was really this first impression that you all were encouraged to have your own identity. And it wasn't so restrictive, but what you're saying is that wasn't necessarily the truth about it.
Like, yeah, in some ways, like, nobody at school was allowed to wear head wraps. And it was just a lot of restrictions against, like, the clothing that girls wore, and things like that.
Versus boys. So, yeah. I remember you being very upset about the head wraps because that was like your head wrap heyday. You were, because that was the transition from having your locks where you took all your locks out and you started to wear head wraps. And so I feel like that rule kind of came about because of you. I think, was there anyone else at your school wearing head wraps like you to that degree?
To be honest, I think that I started it because the head wrap rule was in place, but people weren't like enforced. Like, I came to school with it and nobody kind of like enforced the rule and made me take it off. And so I was like wearing it every day, and then like everybody else was like starting to do it because they realized that I wasn't getting in trouble for it. And so then everybody started to do it, and then the rules started getting enforced.
I had no idea. She has been homeschooled since 9th grade, and she is graduating at the end of the school year as a dual-enrolled student. She has been taking community colleges since 9th grade, so when she finishes high school as a homeschooler, she will also be earning an associate's degree from the Community College of Baltimore County. As long as it may seem that I've been homeschooling, I admit that at times it could be a bit isolating, as no one else in my immediate circle homeschools, and I have never really had a community where my daughter and I fit in. So when I made the decision to center my dissertation topic on dual-enrolled African-American homeschool students, I didn't realize how much I would be learning as I stepped outside of my homeschooling bubble. For starters, Black homeschoolers are not a monolith. There are so many things we call our homeschooling practice. That homeschooling looks different, and it's very unique to who your family is. So in my research, so I say that the homeschooling looks different and it's very unique to who you are, who your child is, who your family is, what your needs are, all of those things, okay? But as a researcher, I also know that to be true. So as a practitioner, as a homeschooler, I know that to be true. As a researcher, I know that to be true as well. The research will tell you that the reasons why Black families homeschool are vast. Some of those reasons include environmental issues. One researcher by the name of Rohn said that environmental issues in the schools, from drugs to discipline issues of other children, and low expectations from teachers and administrators is one of the number one reasons why many families Black families are choosing to homeschool. Another reason, racial intolerance, the work not challenging in the classroom. A researcher by the name of Malik interviewed families and found that Black parents chose to homeschool when the school in which they originally had their children enrolled had issues regarding race, or the work was not challenging their children. Marek also found that parental experiences and religious background also impacted the choice to homeschool. So parents make decisions to homeschool and forego enrolling them in school sometimes based on their own experiences in institutionalized schooling or their want to emphasize religious training in their instruction. My study was unique in that it was not focused on the perceptions and experiences of Black homeschooling parents, but really was focused on the children themselves and their lived experiences. My study found that the study participants felt their homeschool experiences prepared them for community college in 5 areas in particular. These 5 areas were cultural identity and awareness, time management, effective communication, coursework completion, and self-awareness of academic strengths and interest. The activities that the study participants reported as being linked to preparedness for community college are in this chart. Things that stand out are participation in co-op classes and workshops that focus on math prep, cultural identity, English prep, and career pathways, field trips to plays and museums, online resources like Khan Academy and YouTube, learning experiences during the summer, the ability to work on coursework at their own pace, whether at an accelerated pace or a slower pace, the ability to work in groups and extracurricular activities and leadership roles in sports, clubs, or in jobs. During a focus group with 2 of the participants and in interviews with all of them, I learned from them how they got direct and indirect messages from their parents when it came to how you treat other Black people within predominantly white spaces and how you navigate spaces with a sense of self-awareness born from cultural awareness. One young person in my study credited her homeschool experience in an Afrocentric homeschool co-op as building her cultural awareness to the point that she often felt she had a better sense of cultural awareness and knowledge of her heritage when interacting with other Black students at her college. This student, who I called Bailey in my study, indicated during the focus group that her parents told her before she started community college that it was not only important to have a sense of cultural identity when navigating white spaces, but to understand the responsibility in building relationships with other Black students, and that it comes with this acknowledgement. She said, "My parents always encouraged me to be friends with the other Black people in predominantly non-Black spaces. But," she said, "even if it's not to be friends with them, just to be allies to these people, just because." She demonstrated a particular loyalty to other Black students in predominantly white spaces, inferring a need to protect and shield each other from potential negative attention or action on the part of non-Black faculty and peers. She went on to explain her point further during the focus group. Another student during the focus group offered her own perspective. She went on to share how her homeschooling experience never included a direct lesson on building alliances with other students based on their African descent. But, she said, from listening to her parents have conversations about how new African American co-workers were being hired in the workplace, she inferred that it was important to be an ally to other African American students. It is easy to find stories about the positive impact of homeschooling Black children when you see the news articles on children who are homeschooled starting college at ridiculously young ages or doing amazing feats. But what I found most useful in my research findings was how the positive impact is psychological, it seems, and the self-efficacy that these children develop is useful to them in ways that, yes, helps them navigate a college campus, but also when it comes to decision-making and critical thinking skills. In closing, as I parent my dual-enrolled homeschooler through her last year of homeschooling, I am personally reminded of the positive impact of homeschooling as I look around our house and see the plants she has tended to and grown for the past 4 years as she taught herself propagation and shared a love of plants with her father and late grandmother, my mom. I am personally reminded of the positive impact of homeschooling when I see all of the books scattered throughout her room, books that weren't for a class or assignment I gave, but books she bought at the local thrift store or asked me to purchase for her just because. I am reminded of the positive impact when I hear her debate her friends through her closed bedroom door about topics ranging from police brutality to the presidential election, when she plans COVID-safe meetups with her friends or decides to take the half-mile walk to the grocery store to get the healthy food she has decided she wants to prepare for herself that day. When I see her practice self-care and witness her developing a keen insight into who she is as a learner, as a thinker, as someone responsible for her own wellness and body agency, without hesitation, I say that she is the embodiment of the positive impact of homeschooling a Black child.
I want to just introduce myself. My name is Queen Thais, and I am the founder and CEO of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Institute. We're based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We work with African families from throughout the diaspora. Now, you should just be here in the US, and now it has grown to 12 different countries where we're able to impact, which really just lets us know that we are dealing with the same things wherever we go throughout the diaspora. And really, that's the reason for this summit this weekend, is for us to be able to come together and share resources and be able to gain information where we can work together for our true liberation and sovereignty. And so to me, homeschooling is one of the best ways ever that I have found in my life to really help change the trajectory of the lives of our family members, and it affects our whole lineage going forward. And one of the things when we talk about liberation, you know, being able to just break it down into the various segments of what that looks like, because a lot of it starts first with the detoxification of our own indoctrination. For us who are parents, who are educators, or just us brothers and sisters in the community, grandparents, aunties, uncles, you know, brothers, sisters, whatever it is, we have an opportunity through detoxifying our own minds and how we've been educated, because most of us have been educated in the public school system or in a very Eurocentric environment. So I first like to start with, you know, a lot of people are trying to figure out why homeschooling is a better choice, or just considering, you know, is it something that you can really accomplish? And so I first want to say yes, 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 and yes to all of that, because everything is about acquiring the skills. And I'm a firm believer, and yes, everybody's not going to homeschool, meaning pulling your children out of school, but we all have to homeschool to some degree, whether it's supplementary, you know, or complementary to another educational experience, or whether we're just taking that full leap and saying, you know, I want to have my children, I want to be in full control of my children's education, and I want to homeschool. So now we have those who are homeschooling by design and by default, right? And so what I think is happening right now from talking with different families and working with different people is that a lot of those who are homeschooling by default through the public school system are now seeing that this is something that they actually feel a little bit more confident in taking the leap with, because their children are already home, they're already steering them in the educational process, but yet through the public school curriculum. So what I'm here to do today is just share just a few quick steps on your homeschooling journey. And I say your homeschooling journey, our homeschooling journey, right? And what that could possibly look like, and just the mindset and the thought process around that. I have 7 children. I have 3 still at home. I have a a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old who spoke earlier this rising, Asir, Asar, and my daughter, Aset. And you know, through my homeschooling experience, I've been able to just learn so much myself. And so that's one of the things I think we underestimate, is that as parents, when we're homeschooling and we're just having a direct connection to the growth and development of our children, keeping our finger on the pulse, how much that it's a reciprocal process. So we are equally growing like they're growing, which is really how it's supposed to be. Because a lot of times as parents, we feel like we need to pour everything into our children, give them every last drop of what we have. And I disagree with that. I feel like our cup still has to be full in order for us to give. And at the same time, we have our own responsibility to achieve our divine purpose as well. Because, you know, if parenting is a reciprocal process, then we know that there's a certain level of achievement that we have to reach in order to be able to, number one, to set the example for our children of how things should be. They have to see us grow and evolve and change our thoughts and philosophies and ideologies, or things we used to eat. We don't eat that anymore. This is why, because they have to see that this is the journey of life. It's a process of becoming all the time. And so one of the things I want to suggest first, when I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking about homeschooling from all perspectives and all walks of life. So no matter if you are working full time, if you're a single parent, if you're a wife, whatever it may be, let's just look at it when I'm speaking to all of you. So I first like to start with the mission statement. Usually we think about mission statement when we're talking about our businesses, right? We create, we set goals according to what we want to be most prevalent and present in our life. And so every family needs a mission statement. And why? Because the mission statement is really the tree trunk, right? Our children become the branches. Everyone has their individual divine purposes and things that they've come here to do. However, the tree trunk serves as the core, your core values, your traditions, your morals, you know, all of the things that you feel, your spirituality, the things that you want all of your family members to center around. And so when you have that mission statement, it also assists in identifying when you're going off course and when you need to pull it back center. And usually when things get a little chaotic in our life, it's because we are not focusing enough on what's happening at that core in our mission statement. So it's a great idea to create that, to function from that space. And it's something you can create yourselves, or also just as a family collective, you know, be able to invite the input of others. And so I want to share that first because I feel it's a great foundation of where to begin. And then in addition to that, I want to also speak to curriculum, because that's another scary word for a lot of people. Like curriculum, like where do I get a curriculum? Where do I find a curriculum? How do I implement a curriculum? Or how do I keep up with this curriculum? There's so many questions and anxiety around curriculum. And I really am a firm believer, as Sister Khadijah's daughter had experienced. I love that piece where she said a lot of the learning of our children should be self-directed learning. And what that just simply means is that there's things that our children are interested in that they should be able to study. If we don't allow them that experience, for them to dive into the things that they're interested in, that they'll always be waiting for someone else to give them the knowledge and not realizing you can go out and get it yourself. You can research, you can talk to different people in the community. You can create your own experiences, because that's what homeschooling really is. It's about creating our own reality. And when I think about the African Sustainability Summit, that's what this is. It's about creating our own reality and within the reality that we live in, and giving our children a different experience of their greatness, of their Black excellence, of their brilliance, and of the infinite possibilities of what they can achieve in this time and space. And so the opportunity for them to really be able to build their confidence in their competence in who they are. And it's a chance for us to be able to keep our fingers on the pulse in terms of their social and emotional wellness. A lot of times what people will share with me is, well, what about their socialization? And do they get a chance to socialize? And I always say, yes, like African people, we're the most social people on the planet. And I don't want my children socializing with everyone. We have to have discernment around who our children are hanging out with. Doesn't mean that that there can't be some diversity in that, but we want to make sure they're environments that are nurturing, that are loving. If they have friends that are encouraging. A lot of the stuff I see out here nowadays, you know, is just, it's a low vibrational energy a lot of times that, like you said, that we are the company that we keep, right? So if our children are around certain individuals that do not encourage them and they don't necessarily have to like the same thing, but in terms of goals and wanting to be successful in life and those types of things, and also having those around who show love and really give that support, that you guys are giving that to each other, and that our children are having those type of relationship experiences, because relationships that we are around or that we are part of, they dictate so much in our lives. And so the other piece of that is really defining our own success. I want to challenge each and every one of you to first take some time to figure out, you know, where did you get your definition of success? Where did it come? Was it from certain family members, certain experiences? Was it a certain pressure that was put on you? Was it a more relaxed definition, right? Because to me, success is really being able to live in your divine purpose while you come here, and to be able to thrive and not just survive, but to be able to thrive in all that you do, to be able to be economically sound, culturally centered, right, in who we are, in our spirituality, on all different levels, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And a lot of times, other family members will dictate, you know, success is if you make this amount of money, or success if you work if you work this type of job, or if you go to college and you get this degree, or if you know, all of those things can exist within success, but there's so many layers to it. And so as African people living here in this construct, in this context, we have to examine who is defining our success. So not only do we want to examine where we got our ideology around success, we want to then ask ourselves, is it African? Is it in alignment with who we are as a people? And we can see that all around right now, that so many things that are degrading and deteriorating in society are based around a misnomer around success. Like it's not really what we think it is. And there's a lot of children who grow up trying to please, right, different adults and their ideologies and values that don't really align with their happiness. So they end up making a lot of money, but yet they don't appreciate life in its fullness. And a lot of times that leads to depression. It leads to, you know, just being a certain stage in life and wanting to just completely disengage from all of those other things. So what, you know, how beautiful can it be for us to nurture our children now from a space of self-love, from a space of loving their community, their Africanness, identifying their power in their culture. Like I say, our culture is our cure. That's like one of my favorite things, because everything that we need can be found right within us, right within our community, right within our spirit, within our soul, within our story. You know, everything we need is right here, and we are our greatest resource. So everyone we have around us is the curriculum. So when we speak about curriculum, we have to look further than just worksheets and textbooks. And even as Sister Khadijah has shared earlier, I love you, Khadijah, sending some love out to you, with her daughter, is that when she had the opportunity to really, you know, begin to express herself in the way that she wanted to share, you know, whether it's through speaking or through theater, or, you know, all of the things that she had bottled up inside that was still very much a part of her, that it really transformed her and allowed her to actualize some things in her life that she wanted to do and experience. And so I'll give an example. I'm not saying that textbooks and worksheets are not valuable. Absolutely, they're valuable. It's an opportunity to be able to reinforce things, certain principles and ideas. With the self-directed learning, you know, our children can choose different things they want to study, and all subjects can be taught through every subject matter. And I say that in a way that normally we're taught, like, this is science, this is math, this is reading, this is writing, which is a Eurocentric fragmentation. They fragment everything, right? Even when it comes down to herbs, they want to take a piece of the herb out and tell us, and then mix it with some chemicals and then sell it back to us. And then they call it, give it its own name. Oh, this is holistic health and wellness. And we buy our own culture back from them. So this is giving them the roots. This is digging into the science of, you know, how do we educate? It has to be a holistic way. And that you can take one subject matter and you can teach everything through that one subject matter. It could be a person that we're talking about in our story. And we can talk about, you know, the geographical location of where that person lived. We can get on the map and we can do some math and deal with the grids. We can talk about the geological structure of the earth, or what's happening in that area. What are some things that are happening? I'm doing that right now in one of my tutoring sessions. I have a group where I'm taking all of the children are all across the country. And so I'm able to take where they live and say, hey, what's going on? What's our story there? What are some of the things that are happening scientifically there, you know, that we can dive into? Because the learning should be relevant. It should be the real life, you know, experiences that are relevant to our lives. Because at the end of the day, in the beginning of the day, it is about our empowerment. If we're not using our talents, our gifts, and our skills to empower our community, to heal our community, then we're really not doing anything. You know, a lot of times we see a lot of young people on Facebook and everybody says, hey, they're doing great, and they are, you know, from all over the world, throughout the diaspora, but yet they turn around and they work for Monsanto, or they give their skills, you know, they get paid off so easily because they don't know the value of what they have. And that value comes from inside, knowing the value of who they are and how this can benefit their people. And so when we're going into this technology age, you know, we want to make sure that we're asking our children if they're involved in STEM, which we know has always been present, right? And we've always been leaders in STEM on all levels. However, are we using these STEM principles for our own upliftment? Because a lot of our children will see what will happen is a lot of them will be bought off by some of these billion-dollar companies, because if we don't have a clear road of how we're going to travel in the innovation that is needed, you know, to sustain our community, whether it's through agriculture, whether it's through whatever area that we're looking in, then what we'll find is just without clarity from us adults and without listening to our children and some of the ideas and thoughts that they have, you know, in their curriculum, in their learning, then we lose. This is something that we really have to be willing to hear their voice and just pay attention. I will give one last quick thing, because I know I'm probably right around that time, is that I love, entrepreneurship to me is just amazing. For our children to be able to take what they love and be able to turn it into cash flow, happiness, sustenance, right? So I choose to say now that our children are not building businesses, they're building empires. And it's a whole nother thought process. When we think of empire, we think of stability, we think of empowerment, we think of a monumental system that's in place. And so if we put that in their mind and we talk about the structure and the order of what that takes, they're able to do so much. And we're dealing with them from their stage and not their age. So there's no more you're ahead, you're behind. There's no more experts in anything, right? Because how can anyone be an expert when knowledge is infinite? You know, so we're giving them the opportunity. If we say they're behind, then they feel less than. If we say they're ahead, then they feel like, oh, I don't really need to do much, and they get arrogant. So the whole point is there's no ahead or behind. We have to work with our children where they are with love. I've been able to actualize that in my own life through internships and apprenticeships. So that's the last point I want to make, that don't be afraid to get your children involved. And even if you have to create the internship, which is what we had to do for, I'm looking at my middle son and daughter, and we had to create them. We had to go to people and say, hey, I think this is a great opportunity. Would you be open to allowing my child to come in and intern with you? And I've seen the effects, the greatness of it. My son was very much interested in aviation and car mechanics at the same time. And that spun into a love of aviation, and he was able to become a pilot at 16, actualize his dream. He's 24 now, still flying. You know, now he's doing it as a career, and he's got some entrepreneurial endeavors going on with that. But I can trace it all the way back from when he was about 5 or 6, because he used to take everything apart and then halfway put it back together, right? So it was the process of zoning in and recognizing, wow, he really is very technical, very scientific, very mathematical. And what are the things that I see he's gravitating towards? And being able to nurture whatever that is. And yes, it allows for us to grow as well, because we don't always know what to steep them in. But if we're intentional, because homeschooling is about being very intentional and very present. If we're intentional, we can begin to pull the resources. We can look up other brothers and sisters who are doing similar things, or who have a piece to the puzzle. We can begin to look for books. We can begin to look for videos. We can begin to take them to different conferences. And it's all about, like I said, it's all about their stage and not their age. So you can bring them. My children attended adult conferences and workshops. I'd have to ask, you know, I know there's no children, this is for adults, but you know, my daughter, she's really interested in becoming a chef, and she would like to sit in. And so there's so much that we can do with what we have. And so I'm going to leave it right there.
All right. Listen, wow, Queen, you blowing it up. Okay. We have first of all, amazing, absolutely amazing. I have a lot of questions, but I'm gonna look at. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and this is also for Dr. Khadijah. The first one was actually geared for Dr. Khadijah. Excuse me. So how was it navigating dual education, the dual education process? What age level would you recommend dual enrollment for Dr. Khadijah?
Hello, everybody. Good evening. So dual enrollment, just in case everyone isn't clear on what that is, dual enrollment is when a child is still in P through 12, and typically it's high school students who then are taking college courses. And typically, when high school students are dual enrolled, they may be taking community college courses. And that's what my daughter is. She is in her 12th grade year. She's being homeschooled, but she also has been taking community college courses since she was in 9th grade. And the children that were in the study that I did for my dissertation, there were 8 children. All of them were taking community college courses during their high school years, but they were all different years. So some of them were in 9th grade. I think one was 9th, a couple were 10th, and one person that one of the children I actually interviewed her when all her bags were packed and she was on her way to a 4-year institution, and she had been dual enrolled since she was 15. And so my recommendation is really see where your child is at, because it's not an answer across the board. It's just like what Queen, I always tell her that I love it when she says stages, not ages. I love it when she says that, because that is advice across the board when it comes to homeschooling, because our children, homeschoolers, we're not a monolith. And so because we're not all the same, everything is really dependent, and homeschooling allows you to zone in on what your child's strengths are, and for them to learn around that. It's not a deficit approach, it's an assets-based approach. And so when you're considering dual enrollment, for my daughter, dual enrollment was just basically what came natural, because she was not loving co-ops at that point. She was sick of them. And she told me, she said, I have had it. You keep putting me in these co-ops where these little kids are. I'm sick of being around the little kids. She's my only child. So she's just she thinks she's grown, all that. So she wanted to be, there were things that she wanted to learn that really co-ops were not offering. So that she was at that stage, as Queen Thais would say, and that's why it was natural for us. She actually began taking college courses, which would be the 2nd semester of her 9th grade year. So that's spring.
Okay, excellent. Let's see here. We have another question in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Khadijah. We have another question in the chat. This is for both of you, can you give references for African-centered curricula?
Yes, absolutely. And I think now more than ever, there are, where there used to be a deficit, now, there are some quality programs. I know there's a lot of supplemental work in programs. Kamali Academy is probably one of the first more prevalent ones to come out. We have a list because I know the time is limited. We have a list on our website. And if they visit, which website? It's the Liberated Minds Institute.com, minds with an S, liberatedmindsinstitute.com. And you can sign up on the email list. We also send out information as well periodically about not necessarily solely just a whole curriculum, but pieces that can complement the curriculum that you have in place or complement the educational experience that you have.
I just want to reiterate what Queen said, which is so important, that when we even think of curriculum, what we create, the learning materials that we create for our children, that is curriculum. And so even if you have something that may have a Eurocentric lens, but you yourself have enough knowledge to insert or turn it so that you are centered, that your history and that your people, your ancestral roots are centered, that then becomes an African-centered curriculum. So it really isn't necessarily where you have to step outside of yourself. You can look and see what you have in your house, what you've been using. In addition, there are co-ops. Queen herself, she teaches classes. There are many co-ops are teaching courses from an Afrocentric lens. And so what you probably will have more challenge finding is something that says this is an African-centered curriculum, and you'll have to pay more attention to who are the people teaching it, where is it coming from. I'm in the Washington D.C. area, and Sankofa Homeschool Collective is probably one of the most popular homeschool collectives now, nationally. Monica Utsi, she is one of the co-founders, and she said that with COVID, they've now gone global, because folks now, they were thinking about going online, but now with COVID, it was a necessity, and now their attendance has peaked. So I really would just urge you to see who is the facilitator or the teacher of the curriculum, and then you start to get a sense of how the curriculum is centered.
I love that. Can I add to that really quick? Because that's like so beautiful and on point. The curriculum is I say Mama Khadija because that's what I call all the mamas. But it is who is teaching the curriculum, coming through. And also I want to add that, your life is your curriculum. There are things, there are times where, we'll just like, hey, we're just going to go kayaking today. We're just going to hang out for the day. And yet that has become the curriculum for the remaining of the week, where we studied buoyancy, we studied the formulas, right? So that's the science and the math. We studied how a kayak is made. We studied our indigenous origins of the kayak. This was actually a curriculum that from that experience of us just being out as a family, having a great time, now became very enriching to the umpteenth degree, because not only did we have a great time in a wonderful family experience, that it was education outside of the four walls. And now we can take that and we can talk about it. And now, because we had the experience, it becomes meaningful. And I say that because sometimes, our children learn so many different things, and it's like information being shoved in, and it's not connected to anything. It's not meaningful. And so, like my son right now, he's reading I give a great example, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so because he's younger, I'm having to kind of go step by step with him and each little piece. And so some of the questions that were coming up were, well, what is the draft? What is this war that they're talking about? Now, if I was just to teach him about a war, this is the war, he would have no memory of that at all. Because now I can tie it to something that is meaningful to him. He's enjoying the book. He loves Malcolm X. I can tie it to something meaningful. Now he wants to know, what is this war all about? So now we're breaking all of that down. And so now that it's going to stick, it's not just information that just I'm throwing at him because someone said, learn this, learn that, learn this, learn that. Allow the experiences to choose our children, the books to choose our children. And then let's work through that space to be able to, you know, navigate and identify, like, what is it they're supposed to get from this? Because most curriculums are very limited.
Right.
You know, they're not textured, the dimensions of them are very shallow. And even with some of the curriculums, as Khadijah, as you said earlier, with a lot of the curriculums, we can expand even on what's right there, right in front of us. Yeah. And we can take it to another degree. We can have them do projects around it, you know, fun projects. I saw the cake, was it the cake that she did? You know what I mean? That's amazing to be able to, now you got preparing food.
Queen, I want to step in and say something, because I know that you've offered this before, but I don't think that we talk about it enough on all of our panels, all the conferences that we go to, because this curriculum question comes up a lot. And I think what we fail to really emphasize is the importance on how we facilitate learning as parents, and how, because it's everything that you're saying about curriculum, but your energy and how folks can feel it and are energized when you speak, you infuse that when you teach. And I've never had, I am by no way as hype and as amped as you, but I have my energy levels as well. And I've never had, you know, I teach college, I'm a teaching artist, I've taught for years. Mainly, that's the thing I've done most of my life. And I've never had issues when I've had classrooms with classroom management. I've never had issues where I've had to, you know, in college, I had to put someone out and have a talk with them, but I've never had those kinds of issues because of my facilitation style is engaging. And parents don't think about that with homeschooling, because they're like, it's my kids. They're gonna listen to me. They better listen to me, you know? But it's not even just about how we punish them or make them respect us. How we engage them with learning impacts the way they receive the learning. And I really think that there needs to be some emphasis on that, because a parent that thinks from that lens, that it's how I present this to them and get them excited about them, this will realize that anything becomes a curriculum. And when we talk about African-centered, Africa is in everything. Africa is in everything. You could teach everything that you teach. It leads back to that.
It's gonna touch Africa.
Performance arts. It's always, I have these little white kids in my class, they are getting an African-centered education. Africa is in everything. And it has everything to do with, and if we're not right as facilitators, as teachers, if we don't have the energy and the verve and the excitement about what we want them to learn, it's going to be just as jacked up and disinterested and toxic and ineffective as when they are in the public schools. And I just have to say that, because
that's a great point. That's a great point.
It's like
point. I'm loving
you are presenting it with energy and love, and that's what needs to be inherent when we're teaching these children.
And you know, we have to make sure that, you know, we're homeschooling ourselves too. Like, we have to be gentle with ourselves. There's a lot of things that we were not good in school because we didn't have the right educators. We didn't have educators that loved us. Or if we did, the curriculum was taught in a way that was not conducive to us. Because it's, you know, there's so many different types of learning styles. Like my little one, I mean, I cannot have him sit down at a table. He's just everywhere, you know? And I thought, okay, he needs a different type of engagement. But if he was in a different school setting, they'll be like, oh my gosh, can you please come get him? He's moving too much.
Suspend them, criminalize them, all kinds of that. You're exactly right.
Yes.
Okay. Family, this room, we're about to run out. We run out of time. Actually, I was trying to stop you guys at 5 minutes before, but the conversation is hot, and we want to. Wait a minute, she's saying, okay, you can stay. Just create a new. Okay, so
I feel sorry for whoever puts us together, Queen. All the
time. Somebody had here's a good question here. Since we have some more time. So somebody asked a question in the chat, and we can continue our conversation in the HOVA chat Q&A section. Okay, so if you have questions, you can still post those questions in here, right? But here's a question: it says, can you speak about testing from 3rd grade and beyond? And how do you address standardized testing? How do you deal with that?
Oh, okay, I'll let you share with that. I know you're very well versed with that. I'll share my perspective, but I know you're going to get detailed with that.
Well, the thing is that it's so interesting because they specified the grade, but really states are different in terms of when they start testing. I know I am in the Washington, D.C. Metro area. I'm in Prince George's County, Maryland, okay? And my daughter, they have a test where they teach, they test children in 3rd and 8th grade. And well, they did when she was in school, but she hasn't been in school for years now. But 3rd grade is actually where she was tested for gifted and talented as well. And I am I will say right now, so this, you'll know the lens in which I speak. I am very anti-testing, anti-standardized testing. I'm anti all of that because it's very culturally biased. When you are trying to homeschool, and see, homeschooling laws differ by state. And so I'm not sure if this person is asking a question about testing, because there are some states where they are determining what the child is learning based on a test that the child may have to take to be able to continue homeschooling.
Or even in public school or if they're homeschooled, because I'm not sure, if they're referencing the public schools. I know here in Georgia, it's every 3 years.
Right.
To be tested, but you know,
and they don't do that here in Maryland.
Right. And I know, like you said, every state is different.
Right.
And in homeschooling, the test does not disqualify you from moving forward. But in public school, it's a different scenario. So I'm not really sure exactly.
We're not sure if they were asking us about testing in reference to homeschooling or just in general. I am not a fan of testing. When my child was in public school, she tested and she actually tests well. But again, I think it's culturally biased because I think it has a lot to do with the language development that's happening at home, the things that the child is introduced to. I have an advanced degree, but also we're a very language oriented family. And so all of those things matter. All of those things matter. And so because those things matter, I don't think it's fair for you then to be testing a child that comes from children that come from different home backgrounds. That makes no sense to me.
And it doesn't give a full scope. You know, it doesn't. You can have a child who tests really well, but yet they're very inadequate in other areas.
That was me.
Right.
When my daughter was doing well as a tester, I'm like, who is this child? Like, she didn't get it from me or her father. That was not our ministry. We did not do well in that at all.
Right. All right.
I mean, it's Dr. Ivory Tolson. He's a renowned researcher. He's at Howard, but he was also working with Obama on the My Brother's Keeper initiative. But he has this book out that I really recommend. It's called No BS, but that stands for No Bad Stats. And in that book, I've referenced that in my literature review on my dissertation, because what he talks about is how is this normalization, this this whole achievement gap, terms like that are always measuring the academic achievement of Black students without taking in context all of the things that Black people encounter in this country. But wouldn't it make sense if we are measuring the achievement of Black children in public schools or traditional schools to those who are achieving proportionately the best, which are homeschool students? He doesn't say homeschool students, but he said that we shouldn't be measuring them according to white children, right? And in my dissertation, I say, all of the research indicates that homeschool students are achieving proportionately at higher rates than those in Black children in public school. So shouldn't they be the norm in which we are rating the success of our schools? Because they are
it's not really an achievement gap, it's a resource gap. If we don't have the resources that we need, because we're not coming, you know, for us to just get from -50 to 0 is an achievement. But if you look at their scales, they're looking from 0 to wherever, but yet it's at the hands of your oppression why we're dealing with getting from -50 to 0. And so if that's not accounted for, you know, from the healing, and and the educational and curriculum trauma and everything our children and families, things that have been perpetuated year after year after year, you know, so they can't test us. They can't look at us and they don't have the right lens to be able to look into our lives and say, this isn't. It's for us to create the systems and just be able to look at our children and say, okay, I know they've improved in this area. What are the other areas? Right. And so I encourage everybody to write down what are the things that are most important to you for your children to learn. Right. We don't have to wait for someone else to give us a piece of paper to say, okay, from September to June, this is what they have to learn. Why can't we look at, okay, from September to June, based upon what I know about my child, these are the things that I would love to see them improve in, get better at, right, be more comfortable with, excel at, right, or just be able to focus on. Right. You know, we don't have to wait for someone else to dictate that to us. And even if they're in the public school and they have a curriculum set, you still set your own curriculum, whether you got to work it on the weekends and the evenings, whether right, it's something you have to, you know, set aside. We have to be able to sacrifice for this change, for this liberation. It can't just be a feel-good thing. It's some hard times in it. I might be smiling. I love homeschooling, but it ain't easy.
Well, there was something you said before, Queen, which I thought it was really important to say in terms of what our idea of success looks like. Mm-hmm. And I know with my research study, it focuses on children who are dual enrolled and looks at that preparedness for college. And yes, many parents look at college attendance and, yes, and graduation as success. Yes. But one of the things that I think that needs to be reiterated when you were talking about the mission statement, because I too tell parents all the time that a mission statement is imperative, but what mm-hmm, is also imperative is understanding the difference between an opportunity and outcome. I actually talked about that at your expo this summer. And because if you start with the outcomes, what do you want the child to do? Or what does the child, because you include them in this process too, what do they want to be able to do by such and such or whatever? A lot of times, if you're outcomes based and you're looking at it from that perspective, you realize that college may not be what is necessary for them to demonstrate these outcomes or to reach these goals that they want to reach.
That's right.
In relation to what you were just saying, the children that I interviewed for my study, what they found with homeschooling is aligned with what you're saying in terms of looking at the calendar year and it not having to be linear as a school year when you mm-hmm, homeschool. One of the benefits and the ways that they felt prepared for community college was because homeschooling allowed them to pace themselves. And so each subject didn't necessarily have equal time because they weren't as attuned to maybe all the subjects equally. So mm-hmm, if they needed to accelerate in math, they had the opportunity to go through all the math that they wanted. But for those students who had to go slow and acquire those skills, they had the ability
to take their time.
So by the time they got to college, they were able to get a sense of who they were as learners. And that had a lot to do that impacted their time management. And we don't recognize that all of these skills are aligned, but what is fundamental is giving the child an opportunity to know who they are as a learner. And that was what, before Baba Uriel cut my movie off, that was what that was what we were getting at, because that was a build-up to my research talking about what that for the children it was about understanding, and my daughter really did not do well in public school because she had no agency over her time and her body. Mm-hmm, and we don't think about that and how important that is to our development psychologically. And
they have to be able to keep their confidence through every experience, whether it's something that they're challenged in, that they want to learn or that's necessary for them to learn. Because there are all those things we do have to say, okay, this is not self-directed, but you do need to learn this, right? We may have to walk with them through that process. We may have to get someone else to do it. There's plenty of people I said, I am not good at this. I'm not even gonna act like it. I'm gonna call so-and-so in, but just letting them know on this journey that it's okay to move at your own pace. And because if the children don't keep up, then they're told, oh, you're not as good, you're failing, they're getting, negative grades. we don't use grades. We don't, my children, my youngest one, they said, what grade are you in? And he's like, I don't really know. You know, I don't focus on that structure. And I don't tell them, what do you want to be when you grow up? I can't stand when people come and ask them that. I'm like, they are becoming every day. Right. And they don't have to just choose one thing. Like this whole mindset of, you know, grooming them to be something, right? And that there's going to be so many different elements of greatness that they all embody if we cultivate them in a way that they can actualize that. And we walk the walk with them and we go through our own internal process that a lot of times, especially as mothers, we're known to just, you know, African women, we all in for everything. We're willing to just give up everything to make sure they have. But we have to make sure that we are all in with ourselves too. We're getting that downtime, right? As we spoke about, come on now, we gotta have that time for self. We gotta carve it out somewhere because we can't be fully depleted. We know when it comes to our babies, we going hard. We going hard.
And so, Queen, I'm glad you mentioned time.
I know. I know. And we got Dr. Alicia. Big shout out. That's my sister right there.
So yeah. So we can people who are listening with Hova, they can still ask questions in the Q&A section over here. Any questions they have, they can still type it in.
Okay. We gotta walk to another room. We gotta virtual.
Let me see something.
We ain't gotta go. We just gotta get out of here.
We gotta get out.
But I did post Dr. Khadijah's video. I did put that in the Q&A so they can continue watching that wonderful video.
Where can we see that at, Khadijah? Outside of like, is there is it on the website or?
It's gonna be live on. It's gonna be premiere on YouTube in some days after the conference. I didn't want it to conflict with the conference. I wanted the conference to present it. The summit to present it first, but it's on our YouTube, Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars YouTube channel.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Okay.
That's a great piece. That's a great piece. I didn't get to see the end, but what I saw was just, great piece.
Okay. And with that being said, let me see. Yema, do you have anything to say? Yema, we got Erica, who are my co-hosts here.
I just want to say, as a mother of 4 boys, 8 and under, thank you. I am struggling with different in the young people learning different styles, and so definitely look forward to connecting in the Atlanta area.
Well, definitely reach out. I'll give my number, which is 678-368-8593. I welcome any of you to reach out. Liberated Minds has a host of resources. From everything from training, just having a community of like-minded people such as Sister Khadijah and Alicia and other brothers and sisters who are on here that can just, assist on the journey. And we can't do it alone. And yes, I'm dealing with that now. I have my last 3 that are home have completely different learning styles, completely different personalities, completely different ideologies. And so being able to serve them individually, it is a lot of work, not to mention that the things that I have to do every day. And so, definitely we can have some dialogue about that. So I welcome everyone to reach out. You have the website, liberatedmindsinstitute.com, and my email is liberatedmindseducation@yahoo.com.
Okay. Can you give your phone number? Your phone number one more time, Queen?
It's 678-368-8593. Feel free to send a text message. We get about 60 calls a day. So we just have a new team that's trying to roll those calls over. So you can always text. And a lot of times that's a lot. I would leave a voicemail and text if you're reaching out, so we can get back to you most efficiently. So just want to send love to all of you. And remember that our culture is our cure. Our culture is our cure, whatever's going on.
All right. Yes. Okay. Dr. Khadijah, did you have a phone number or contact that you wanted to share before we end this?
Sure. So I have my links in the Zoom, and I saw some beautiful person also put it in the Hova chat. So
that was
my
me.
contact. That was you. Thank you, handsome gentleman did it. And so my contact information are at all of those links that anyone visits, you can get in contact with me.
Okay, with that being said, we're gonna let everybody go. Thank you so much. And we're gonna end this class. All right, family.
Thank you for being an awesome host, Brother Uriah.
Yes, ma'am. All right, y'all stay strong and stay strong, stay black. I love it. I love it.